Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here. This is your Planning Outlook video on Friday the 19th of October. Persistently windy conditions will be the order of things across the mountains, particularly in Scotland during the week ahead. Occasional windier days extending further south, but less common here. Some rain from time to time on mostly western mountains, but it's a relatively dry pattern compared to what we've seen in recent weeks. Occasional colder air coming down from the north, which may become more notable later in the month. Let's start off with a look at temperatures, and this is the 850 millibar level. We show you this chart quite a lot. It's the best representative one that we've got really to show the mountains off the computer models, the mountain temperatures. At this stage it's a little bit too high. It's at around 1500 meters, so you're dealing with about 5000 feet, but it gives us a general steer of what temperatures are like, just that little bit higher up off the surface in the atmosphere. Now it's a mild southwesterly through Saturday, but a cold front sinks southwards into Sunday. A marked drop of temperature and freezing level, dipping below freezing on the Munros through Sunday into Sunday night. As we then run on into Monday, that push of colder air gets nudged out of the way and temperatures gradually rise. And for a few days then into the middle of next week, it's back to a relatively mild westerly airflow across the country. Just run on then over a few days towards the back end of the week. That's when things start to get a bit more interesting, as the wind flow is likely to turn more north-northwesterly and some colder air is expected to get drawn a bit more extensively across the British Isles. These are the charts for the next few days. For Saturday, there's the warm southwesterly airflow that's coming in behind a warm front, and rain, drizzle, low cloud will plague the western mountains, particularly in Scotland. Bits of drizzly rain and low cloud around Irish Sea coastal hills as well. Strongest winds, gale force, gusty to low levels across the Highlands. By the time we get through into Sunday, a cold front will have moved smartly southwards with some rain turning to snow on its back edge across the Highlands on the Munros, and that colder air tucking in, with showers that will be of snow and hail to increasingly low levels across the Highlands, not too many of those getting toward the east through the day, and a zone of rain and drizzle sinking south across England and Wales too, but only small amounts across much of the Pennine areas. Into the new week, and Monday sees high pressure centred strongly out toward the west of the British Isles. We've got the remains of a cold front having gone away into France by that stage. The next warm fronts are coming around off the Atlantic, and it'll only be a slow lift of temperatures through the day, so only gradually lifting above freezing on the Scottish Munros. And complications just to what extent any rain and snow comes into the Northwest Highlands. It may be in places here on western coastal hills the snow for a good many hours, gradually becoming rain up to higher levels. Away from northwest Scotland, though, essentially a dry day with many mountains free of cloud. Could just be that some banks of low cloud fill in increasingly across western hills focused on Scotland, where again it will be a windy day with that strong westerly flow, likely gale force on the Munros right the way through. It's a case of spot the difference into midweek really. High pressure stays centred out toward the west. The wind flow is round as a west to northwesterly, still windy up to gale force much of the time across Scottish mountains. Occasionally those stronger winds edging southwards into England and Wales, but Wales more or less staying with relatively lighter winds throughout. A dry story all in all, maybe a few spits and spots just around western coastal hills in Scotland where low cloud will come in more frequently. Elsewhere, many mountains often free of cloud, but just the risk of a skin of low-level cloud just lapping mostly around Irish Sea coasts. It could well be that with a decent inversion in place, the mountains are above any cloud that's around the coast, but just watch out for day-to-day variations through next week. But all in all, it's a dry and pretty bright picture, but just that idea of being windy, particularly in Scotland. And for the record, that's Wednesday's chart. Not too much difference. Subtle variations in exactly where the high is centred may just again dictate low cloud amounts, but many of the mountains could well find themselves poking out above any lower layers. So keep an eye on your local short-range forecast, updated for the 3 days ahead every day at the Mountain Weather website. Just briefly to go on further ahead towards the end of October, and high pressure for now at least is centred out to the west of us, taking you through to the later part of the week. Just as the high builds a little bit further north towards Iceland, it tips the flow round into more of a northwesterly direction and allows some colder air to get drawn in. Now, whether we get a glancing blow of colder air just briefly or a more full-flung Arctic outbreak remains to be seen at this stage. The hint may be that the high is still quite near to us, so a complete northerly blast maybe seems less likely, but at the very least the temperatures will drop, and any showers that come down on the northwesterly will be of snow, perhaps some hail mixed in at times. It may just be that it's still relatively dry with high pressure nearby, just suppressing the tendency for showers to form. So that takes us on over a good few days, not really much changing as we even run towards the final part of the month. Just the indication from the modelling that the high begins to subside back to the south, allows the flow to turn back toward the west, and maybe just the hint of becoming a bit more unsettled generally as pressure falls toward the end of the month, perhaps even into the start of November. Often we go through various weather regimes where we can get stuck for a couple of weeks. If we get the other side of the coin, once the high is gone, you could find that we get low pressure is in charge a bit more commonly. And if that does develop, as some early model hints go for, then early November could be much wetter. We'll have to wait and see for that one. In the short term, relatively dry conditions. Windy a lot of the time, though, is the main headline, and that idea of becoming colder in the second half of next week. Stay up to date with us then here at the Mountain Weather Information Service. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.